This is CyberSound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity.
Welcome to CyberSound. I'm your host, Jason Pufahl, joined today by Dylan Marquis, the lead security engineer for our offensive security practice.
Hi.
Dylan, thanks for joining. I know that I didn't give you a ton of time to prepare. We only chatted about this in the last couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're doing something different, right? We are running this with no headphones. And so we were actually just told, be careful not to touch the table because we can't actually hear ourselves. So we're trying to pay attention to that.
It's not my request, so sorry about that.
It was a soft touch, but we got it nonetheless. And the other really, though, is we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about one of our services. And that's atypical for the podcast, but I'm really proud of what we're delivering. I think you should be really proud about what we've built. And honestly, I want to showcase that a bit partly because we are getting a lot of requests for penetration testing. And I think people don't really know what it is exactly. They don't know what makes us, in my opinion, better than a lot of other companies out there, and why they should work with us. So I kind of want to cover that today.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm no expert, so I'm going to have you spend a second on really what is pen testing.
Sure. So penetration testing is an offensive assessment. It's an audit, just like any other assessment. But really, what we're doing is kind of auditing existing security controls in an environment, and we're also looking for essentially to uncover a risk in the form of vulnerabilities. And then where it differs from a vulnerability assessment is we're exploiting those vulnerabilities. So we're not just identifying them, we're exploiting them and moving deeper into a network and then kind of starting the whole process over again. We're trying to find additional vulnerabilities deeper in and then exploiting those, hopefully with the eventual goal of compromising the domain or essentially pivoting internal from an external perspective outside the network into it.
So what are the drivers that a company might be looking at as why do they need to do a pen test?
So, I think the most general one is understanding risk in the environment, where your risk lies, where you have vulnerabilities, and how you can remediate them. Kind of more specific external drivers would be, compliance frameworks that you're beholden to, like GLBA, CMMC, things like that. Additionally, cyber liability can require, annual or regular penetration testing.
The regs that we see most common, PCI probably, I think you said GLBA.
Yep. GLBA is a big one.
HIPAA?
I think HIPAA it does have a requirement. Certainly healthcare is interested in where the risk lies. So
right.
I'm not quite sure if it's a hard requirement or if it's just, or not. So,
yeah. So talk about our methodology a little bit. I think, the most common question I get is, there's AI tools out there. There's automated tools. AI is maybe overused a little bit, but there's automation that's out there, and we really talk about our process being much more manual.
Yep.
What's the benefit of that? In what way do you sort of utilize automation?
Sure. So like you said, our process, we conduct manual pen tests. We do utilize some automation. It's mainly for identifying vulnerabilities, getting an understanding of your network environment or organization's network environment, to just kind of get a lay of the land. So we're coming in cold. Generally, we've never seen how an org works. We're trying to get an understanding of that, so that way we can really kind of gauge where risk might lie, where vulnerabilities are, and how we can exploit them. So the automation is largely used for that. They call it enumeration, to kind of get a sense and a handle on things. But exploitation is all conducted manually, kind of by hand. And additionally, the automation is it's still, hands on keyboard. We really have engineers engaged the whole time. These aren't tools that are just kind of spun up and left to their own devices. It's really a hands-on process, and we're really kind of watching it, and there's a lot of benefits to that.
I assume a lot of creativity. You have to really understand an organization and think like an attacker, right? That's really your job.
Yeah, exactly. It's bringing those sensibilities into an assessment. So we're assessing an organization the way an attacker thinks, and that kind of sheds light on things. Certainly, defenders are thinking in a certain way. We try to kind of shake that up and think in a different way and uncover vulnerabilities that they might not expect to exist in their environment.
So as people are thinking through this a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about our capabilities. So we often, we generalize this idea of pen testing, right? But the reality is you're pen testing wireless, your application or cloud. So talk a little bit about maybe the differentiation between those, perhaps somewhat how they might overlap, but really where our competencies are.
Sure. So I mean, I think our mainly we have a lot of strengths in network and application pen testing. So and those kind of blur, but really we love to bring our application sensibilities to network pen testing. I think our clients get a lot of value out of that. But additionally, kind of where they differentiate network, we're testing your whole network, or internal or external or both. We usually recommend both, so you get kind of a whole picture of your risk. But application is a much more specific sort of assessment. We're going very, very deep dive into an application, really kind of picking it apart. And we really do, I think, have some very good, some very good competencies there. Additionally, we do wireless pen testing, cloud pen testing, and some other specialized tests like segmentation testing, things like that. And also social engineering, phishing assessments. So.
Yeah, I would assume that's a huge component of it with the phishing threat that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always a good value add, for organizations. And additionally, some of our assessments can be augmented with phishing and social engineering, like the network and cloud sort of mandates it with some of the controls that are in place with cloud environments. So part of that test is social engineering based.
So you didn't just one day decide I'm going to be a pen tester. I know
maybe a little bit,
but then it took you a long ramp up, right? So you had an application development background, you had an identity background.
Yeah.
You then said, I really do want to get more on that offensive side, and you got your OSCP. I'm going to let you describe what that is.
Sure.
But that's been, I think, sort of fundamental for all our team members.
Yep.
But maybe talk a little bit about what makes us competent.
Sure. So I mean, like you mentioned, certainly we all the testers have a background in kind of traditional IT is what I call it, which I believe really does help kind of drive. It helps inform where risk can lie, understanding the way that environments have been deployed, or the way that technology has been deployed in an environment. But yeah, so I mean, you mentioned I have a background in identity access management and application. I mean, certainly we get a lot of good gains and tests through those vectors. I mean, Active Directory, the directory services are deployed, so in almost every environment. So really, I think that's where we bring a lot of value is kind of our background experience in that. Yeah. Additionally, all of our testers here, all of our security engineers have OSCPs, which are the Offensive Security Certified Professional certification.
And just for clarity, that took you 6 months, a year? I mean, it's a huge amount of effort.
Yeah, I mean, with a full ramp up, it was over the course of over a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's kind of the industry gold standard for I'll say initial pen testing certs. And we all of our security engineers that conduct testing currently have one.
Okay. And maybe we'll end a little bit because we'll pretend somebody's looking at a statement of work. They scroll past everything we just talked about and they say, well, what's it cost and how do you actually price this thing? And that's one of the real challenges in our industry, right? Is the variability of capabilities, and I'd say the variability of pricing. So talk a little bit about how we control that cost.
So pricing is all time boxed, or I should say all the engagements are time boxed. So we test for a certain amount of time and that's the engagement. Granted, you can always add time if need be, but generally we always see it kind of fall within the box. We scope it based on the size of your network and how we essentially want to make sure you get a good test. So we don't want to underscope and make sure and end up producing a bad deliverable. We really want to drive value. We want to give organizations actionable results that really help them understand their risk and help them become better with security. So we essentially scope based on how we think, based on our experience with testing organizations and how much testing is required based on the types of technologies you have deployed and the size of your network.
So I'm going to spend a second on value because I think that's an important statement because I know you talk about it all the time, right? Just distinguishing ourselves based on providing the best product we can within the time frame that we've structured, right? Part of that value, I think, though, is your willingness to meet, I'll call it regularly with a client. So we're not just doing a test and delivering a report, 2 weeks, 1 month later. You're happy to meet routinely, daily, weekly, whatever. And you'll go so far as if you identify critical issues, you'll communicate that prior to the final deliverable because you know they're important enough to deal with. Like I feel like that's a real element of kind of that concierge service that you've tried to build.
Yeah, absolutely. We provide emergency contact information. We encourage customers to do so conversely. In case we find something, we love to really, and I mean, outside of the emergency aspects, and certainly there's some things that touch on, if we find a critical vulnerability, if we find a threat actor spanning your environment, we want to immediately reach out and kind of close the loop on that. If there's any kind of issues with, a service goes down during testing, it's always nice to kind of have us to cross us off as a variable for that.
Right.
But additionally, we like to talk as much as, we like to converse, whether that's in meetings or just email. We want to, make ourselves available to clients. We love to talk as much as they want to talk. If they have kind of seed detections, if they detect us kind of moving through in their environment, they're interested in what we're doing. We love to explain it to them. And that gives value add too, in that it can test detection mechanisms. It can allow a client to validate the security controls that they currently have in place.
Right. And then I think finally, there's always a little concern around level of risk that the test might actually bring a service down or cause an operational issue.
Yep.
I'd say the fact that you're doing this manually really helps mitigate that. It doesn't go to zero, of course.
Yep.
But you spend just a second on that.
Yeah, it never goes to zero, but certainly we have, we conduct a lot of these, and we have a lot of experience. So we've really tuned our tools and processes to be as minimally invasive as possible. We're always hands-on keyboard, so it really, we kind of always give the caveat that sure, something could happen. We don't fully understand the environment we're coming in, and we gain an understanding of it. But really, we see it's minimally invasive. We see very few issues, and we really do continually tune our processes to ensure that we're not causing kind of any downtime of services or flooding a client with alerts.
Right.
So,
okay. Anything you want to add that, we built an outline, so I think we're covering everything, but do you feel like there's anything you want to quickly add before we start to wrap up?
Only that, this is a service that we're really passionate about. We really enjoy it. We love doing it. We love, seeing how clients react to our product, and our deliverables. And so, it's something that we're passionate about, something that we want to keep doing. And so, I hope that comes through in the service and the product that we're producing.
Yeah, I don't know that I can add any more to that. I think that summarizes it. If as always, if anybody has any questions and wants to talk pen testing, reach out. We're happy to join a call at any point. And frankly and candidly, it doesn't have to be a sales call. If you're just trying to understand, what do I do? How do I do it? And should I do it? We're happy to chat through that. I agree. It's a service that we're really proud of. It's one that we want to see continue to grow. I appreciate all your efforts to do that. And I appreciate you joining the podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to get in touch at Vancord on LinkedIn. And remember, stay vigilant, stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.